If you love sleep, you'll love this idea. It's one that will benefit your world too. In fact, here are some utilitarian builds you can have for free for your survival world, because that's how many of them there are. In fact, it's all inspired by the crafting table problem. This is getting increasingly deep numbers of recipes and increasingly large numbers of things that require you to go there, but yet the crafting table has to be physically placed down, which means you might forget where you have one and end up placing a second. This is a problem that has plagued me many times. In fact, it looks like I actually crafted a third one in this case, and so today I'd like to place crafting tables over my world in a very specific pattern by using the world map as my guide. In fact, not just crafting tables, furnaces and beds as well. The world is going to be covered with them, so I'll never be too far from the ability to smelt, sleep or craft, and in fact I'm going to be going right into that after I show you two very simple utilitarian builds that I'd like to add to my world, because as much as some people love the idea of building solely for the sake of aesthetics, right now it's not what I want to do in Minecraft. I want to build things that will make my life easier, or at least more fun, and so let's start with number one. Oh, for the second time in a row, we're starting this video of a wandering trader, although this one has a llama that seems to have forgotten how to subscribe to IBX Toycat. But what's interesting is the fact that we're going to buy one of these oak trade or one of these wood trades whenever we possibly can from the wandering trader. It is now a must-take trade. If you're nearby and you happen to have emeralds, something you could severely help yourself do by always having chests and beds and crafting tables. But for now, let's go ahead. Let's put this wood away in my lovely storage that is getting even more, and then let's tell you the problem I have in this world. I have a chest problem, although it's really more of a shulker problem. I get these big shulker chests filled with materials, and then I don't know what to do with them, so I just kind of leave them hanging around until later I get the effort to sort them. What if there was a way to solve this? Here is a simple utilitarian solution. I'm going to take some iron and some chests, combine those output to get 3 hoppers, and then I can use this to make a simple spot here, which is in my hallway, where I am a lot, and where I could just leave something lazily, and then it will filter down into my chest room. And using this very simple design, I can now store 4 shulker boxes worth of stuff and push up my problem at least 4 times as long, which is great. I could actually use copper chests in the future and make this sortable by slave labor. I mean, a brand new Minecraft feature. And yeah, isn't it nice for now though? I guess I can't open them yet. I'm gonna need to replace these stone blocks with stairs. Boom, isn't that much nicer? This is a very simple utilitarian build, but it gets even better than this when it comes to easy things that can make your world better, because as wonderful as it is for me to now be able to drain 2 full shulker boxes, I'll be honest, there are some other things I'd love to improve, and 2 of them actually came from the comment section of my previous video. Because I decided to make my big road journey across the world easier and better, I would put this big billboard up, and I actually got some fun ideas for what to write on there, including this comment which says, "This is a sign," which is a great way to, you know, like pseudo-religiously advertise at people as they get past this. But also, someone said this could be a great transition for an ad read, and so you know what? Great transition for an ad read. Have you checked out the Toycat Let's Play World playlist? It's called the Updated Ventures, because it's the Let's Play where I've been building stuff, killing stuff, and of course destroying stuff for 13 years as of October. Crazy that anniversary is coming up. But have you checked out the playlist? Even if you don't necessarily want to watch all of those 624 videos, it is one of the longest playlists on YouTube that is actually a series, you know, that continuously follows on one part from the next. And so if you want something to put on while you go to bed, or maybe even while you go and do other things, then it's a great way to support the channel, especially if you have YouTube Premium, I believe. Anyway, with that said, check out the Toycat Let's Plays playlist. Wow, look at this. This sign does in fact work at being an ad read. Anyway, so the reason I bring up signs is because there's a lot of infrastructure in Minecraft, which is fun to build, but also kind of costly, right? One of the most expensive versions of this would of course be an ice highway. This is the fastest way to traverse huge distances, never overworld or end. However, it also requires a huge amount of building work, which is why not everyone has these all of the time. Even me, I have, oh wait, ooh, I do not like this at all. Even me, I have this giant ice highway, which is here to take me to my bastion, which is meant to have frogs and all that sort of stuff. Oh no, my boat, it just burned. Anyway, I have this big bastion, which, just to remind me, is for frogs, and it's really, really cool to have a big highway, but as you all know, the costs of ice are so high. I'm pretty sure that's why you read about ice on the news so often, and basically, oh my god, it's just That couldn't have gone any worse, could it? Anyway, what's important to note is the fact that because the price of ice is so high, at least if my news understanding is correct, we basically have to make this adjustment, which is to say that I'm not building these giant ice highways just for fun anymore because of the huge amount of time it takes, but there are two places I need to connect with a nice highway. The first of these is over here. If I'm not mistaken, I think it's about 300 blocks that way. I have a warp forest, the nearest one to my spawn, because obviously my world predates that. So rather than not having anything there and having me forget about it, I could simply make my journey easier, because I have the ability to fly. I can hop with my firework rockets, and I can just fly this way anytime I want to, if I know it's over there. I'm going to actually triple check that it is this way, so I don't put up a misleading sign. This is what I would recommend before sharing any information online. But just over here, there we go, yeah. So just in that direction, we have about 400 blocks away, my nearest warp forest. Warp wood is really hard to get, which is why last week when I was building out of signs, I didn't get to build with it, which is a shame. And so what if I made it really easy for future me that needs warp wood to go and chop that down? Well, I could do precisely that with a simple sign, which I'll place over here, which can just say like, hey, or, you know, I can say, get out of my life, you skeleton. Anyway, man, white people am I, right? Anyway, so, you gotta cut that joke. The thing about this is we can now place on this sign 400 blocks this way to warped forest, and later I can remove this sign once I've placed all of the packed ice that will actually function as this, but for now it means that I'm not going to forget where the nearest warped forest biome actually is. In fact, a more fun version of this that I specifically had to research for this video because I wanted to make sure I got the cut right is if I go, I mean technically this is a crimson forest, but if I go just over here at I think it's 415. Oh, there's already a thing over here. But if I go this way, let's just call it 411, because there's already a perfect line here for me, then eventually I'll end up in a crimson forest, which is also useful. Less useful to me because I have crimson logs already, but if in the future I need to chop down more, having a naturally spawned biome is wonderful for that, and so I could start building this pathway now. But if we make the assumption that I'm not going to finish it, which is, let's be real, for this particular moment while I'm working on a big project to cover my world in beds, a fair one, I could just put up a little sign right here that says warped, no, mangrove, no, the red forest this way. There we go. You know, if I call it redwood, then people will think that it's modded in some way maybe, and future me can be confused, which is my favorite thing to do. So yeah, I'll put some more things, a couple of exclamation marks at the end there, just to make sure future me understands the context here. And now we can move on to the next useful thing. So this is proof right here that I could have spent literally hours today building ice highways all the way out there, and it would have been a better use because I can use those things. But for now, I at least know where to head the next time I am motivated, because sometimes, you know, like motivation and let's say knowledge don't always strike in the same place. Sometimes you feel really smart but really lazy, and sometimes you feel really active but you're just not sure what to do. If I had to guess, this has got to be like a biological thing, right? Like your brain takes up energy that your body could be using. But anyway, let's put. I've been putting a lot of my brain power to use on thinking of the best way to make sure that I'm never too far from a bed. Obviously, not in the Nether. Last time I tried sleeping in the Nether, it didn't go so great. But yeah, as far as the overworld goes, you need access to beds, you need access to, I would say, crafting tables, and also less, but still you need access to furnaces, and you need access to chests as well, just to dump some inventory stuff or smelt something up very quickly. And so, wouldn't it be great if there was a consistent way to access this? Well, that's my plan. I thought about this, right? How do you make sure that there are consistent crafting tables, consistent beds, in place that you'll know the location of long after you forget about them? Well, the first way would be a coordinate book. I keep one of these on me at all times. It's inside my shulker box, and it tells me about where all the coordinates are for things that I have found on my journeys. I find this to be hugely, hugely useful. Also, I list ideas in here. Isn't that fun? Oh, I just used one of these ideas last week. Perfect. Love to remove an idea there. So I'm enjoying the fact that I managed to get that done, but also it's got my coordinates, and I could write stuff in here, but when it comes to just needing a bed real quick, The goal is to make it fast and easy, not painful, fast. And so how can I do that? Well, there's a few ways that you can have something be regular and consistent so you don't need to remember the coordinates. I was thinking every single one of these maps could have, say, in the top right corner, a bed with a furnace and a chest and everything like that. But then I realized I don't actually know which map I'm on at a given point in time. Obviously, I can see by looking at this map where on it I am, right over here in case you're curious. My barrel doesn't actually have a roof, so you can't see it properly. But you can see that looking at this map, like, okay, I don't know which map I'm on at a given point in time. The only information I do have all of the time are my coordinates. So fun fact, I put this beacon at 0, 0, just so I always know which quadrant of the world I'm in. If I'm on this side, I'm on the negative Z, positive X. If I'm on this side, it's negative, negative. If I'm on this side, it's positive, negative, and so on and so forth. But since that information is really, really valuable, why don't I use it cleverly, or maybe not, to simply use coordinates as my base for where I should place my base? Think about it. I'm going to place all of these blocks at consistent coordinates, perhaps something like every 1,000 blocks on the X and Z axis. If I go to a round coordinate in the thousands, I should find those things. And so, now to trial out this idea, I have myself a stack of furnaces, I have myself 3 stacks of wool, which can make 3 stacks of beds, and then I've got myself tons of bamboo, which is my generic go-to wood for when I'm not, like, picky about what it's going to turn into, because it's basically free, and I'm going to craft some of this into crafting tables, some of it will be crafted into beds, and then we can now place these all over the world. But I realized just as I put all this together that this is a fun idea, sure, but actually something I think would really help is if these weren't just random beds with furnaces and crafting tables placed next to them. Don't get me wrong, it looks wonderful. Let me show you how great it could look to have simply a bed and a crafting table and a furnace, but then I realized wouldn't it be nicer if rather than having these be randomly on the ground, there was actually a small structure to make it visible that that's what it was. And so let's grab the simplest resources, because I am really big on the idea of Minecraft building, especially now with all of the new blocks that we're getting, like the ludicrous numbers in some cases. I think that Minecraft building should be simple, and so I'm just going to grab myself a bunch of cobblestone from my big cobblestone box. I'm going to grab myself some wood and some glass, and we're going to use these as my resources. Because despite the fact that I probably get just as much utility from having a crafting table with a furnace and a bed next to it, I think that having a small structure will really help with the visibility of the entire thing, and that's why I'm going to do it. And so let's go to 0, 500 to place the very first of these. I think that's going to end up weirdly being in the middle of this forest right here, but this is my simple plan, and it's what we're going to do in this long form, kind of uncut rest of the Let's Play that we'll be doing right now. So this is 500, this is 0, which means that annoyingly we're going to have this base be slightly out in the middle of water, something I should have predicted would happen at least a few times, although I didn't expect the first. So let's grab some grass, easily pick it up, move that grass so it covers layer 0-ish, roughly, and then let's build the inside of our house from here. So here was my initial, so let's pick this up and move it 1 block slightly higher. Here was my basic idea, chat. I wanted to have a crafting table, and I wanted to have a furnace, because, you know, these are things you need around your world, and then I wanted to use that crafting table to make myself a bed, which I'll just have a stack of these to make this nice and easy. Boom, that's a bed. Do I want them to be black? Not necessarily, but I'll place it down, and this is technically all I need to do for the full utility, but there's something weird about niceties that I think can really add to, particularly creative projects, but I think that add to the world, and I want to share this because it's something that really flipped my value of utility on its head. So, I talk a lot about the idea of utilitarianism and the idea that I think that everyone should be seeking to maximize utility for everyone. I think that to not do so is to say that you actively care about your feelings more than you care about, you know, actual realities for some people on the ground, which I think is actively horrible. But I think that despite the fact that that is my opinion, and I do still hold it, there's a little bit of like a mixy messiness, if I had to try and describe it as something. But there's a real messiness that comes when you try to actually define what utility is. So if you don't know the basic idea of like why utilitarianism is important, I think that you could simply put it down to the trolley problem. If you are tasked with, you know, it's the most famous piece of philosophy I think that exists on the modern cultural internet. If you are tasked with being in charge of a trolley and, you know, like you're in charge of a set of points and you see that there is a trolley veering towards where you are at the moment. Also, I feel like the roof should technically be a block higher. We should maybe have like an extra. No. Nice and simple, nice and old school. That's what we actually need. Let's not scope creep this one. Yeah, I think that the trolley problem basically posits like if you could divert a trolley, which by the way is there to use them at. It basically means tram if you're talking about real English. But anyway, so there's a tram that's on the way to kill a bunch of people, and you can divert it from killing the 5 people it's going to, but crucially, but here, if you do so, it will kill 1 person, because there's 1 person tied to the tracks over there, 5 people tied to the one side of the tracks, and so the maximum utility solution is to kill 1 person to save 5. This is non-controversial, yet it still is. The fact that it's the philosophy. Also, by the way, I'm proving the value of these little huts already wonderfully, I think you'll find. But yeah, I do think that, yeah, you know, if we're gonna have a little hut, it should connect. I think just having a roof like this doesn't make sense. So we should maybe have a big stack of this on top of there. And then on top of that, we'll place the oak planks. So place this there now, and then go in and destroy it from underneath. And see if we prefer this more. I think I kind of do. I think maybe you could argue these should be logs too, but this is a nice little shack in my world that I can come to at any point. And I'm not going to put a chest in here like I originally said, because I carry chests on me all the time. I could make a bunch of chests, it's not a big problem, but I carry chests on me all the time, and so do I need to? Not really. This is delightful. I can stand on the bed, I can walk on the crafting table, and it means that I've got spaces to make chests if I want to here, and then even up there if we want to, although I do not realize how fast you can instant mine wood with a Neverite axe of efficiency, I guess. Anyway, so now we've done 0, 500. Let's go do 500, 500. And that's what we're going to do as we go along with this. So the trolley problem is the classic example of like, I think people are being idiots by saying that they wouldn't save 5 human lives over 1. And there's, over the years, I've wondered a lot of reasons why it is. I think the biggest reason I could come up with for not doing it myself is legal culpability. You know, in effect, you're not switching between 5 lives and 1 life. You're switching between 5 lives and 1 life, plus the huge legal ramifications you will go through. And so maybe on like a, you know, like a slight sociopath level, you could argue that, yeah, I value my not going to prison, and even worse, my being defamed. The trolley company, you know, the tram company, you know, TfL are going to be trying to argue, look, this wasn't going to kill 5 people. This rogue random person, this IBX toy cat fella, who has spoken about how he would like to kill people with trams on the internet. This rogue, you know, person just decided to make that decision. And that was absolutely wonky of him to do. We do not support or condone that in the slightest. And, you know, if they came out and said that, then yeah, I think I would go to prison. And I value me not going to prison maybe more than I value 5 lives. Plus, there's the fact that you actively choosing to intervene means that you are going to be partially responsible, if not on a legal level, let's say you know you're going to be legally in the clear, then on a moral level, you know you killed those people, or you killed that person. And, you know, you don't know the relative value of the people. None of them are your friends. None of them are people you know. Maybe the 5 people you save are serial killers, and the person you kill is Mother Teresa. You know, if that were the case, would it be justified? I love the millions of permutations that you can ultimately get into, all of which do create, like, a real fuzziness, if nothing else, around the concept that just start to like break what it is that you think about whether, you know, 5 human lives is just objectively, I don't think I would like anyone who said otherwise. I don't think 5 human lives could ever be said to be worth less than 1, but you can introduce enough mess that you can at least make someone struggle with the idea. Anyway, so the idea of utilitarianism is saying, look, 5 lives are always worth more than 1. The happiness of 5 people is always worth more than the happiness of 1. And it's a really, really easy philosophy to get on board with in that way. But even then, it starts to cause some problems. As someone who believes that utility is something that should be optimized, you can see, you know, like with, I would say big tech is an interesting example of places where you can see like utility of the masses being theoretically placed over the, you know, the individual, but then that's not actually what is happening. So, as an example, I think if we look at social media, the utility of social media is very, very high. The utility value cannot be, so I'm going to make myself a bunch of chests, then I'm going to make myself way more blocks of bamboo into these, then I'm going to make those into crafting tables, then I can make this into a stack, Some of that stack I'll make into another crafting table, and now I've freed myself an inventory slot. I know I have inventory management problems, but I'm getting better at least getting the 2 spots back that I need. But anyway, yeah, so I think that there is a real utility case behind having an open form of discussion with every other human being at the same time. And there is a utility case to argue that engagement is the most important metric, because we kind of lie about what it is we like. If someone asked you, what do you want to see more of on your Twitter feed or your YouTube homepage, you would say things that are different to your real preference. You know, should we respect what you say more than what you actually believe? You know, should we respect your opinions more than your actions? You know, in effect, the utility case says no. The utility case says that actually showing you a good YouTube video, like I hope the YouTube algorithm has done right now, is more important than showing you a video that you claim to want to watch, but you're not actually going to. You know, the reason Duolingo has been so successful as a language learning app is not because people want to learn language, it's because people want to learn language enough that they'll let that little owl gaslight them into doing precisely that. So now I've done 0, 500, or 500, 0, and I've done, now I need to, I've done 500, 500. Now I need to do the opposite, which is 500, 0, which is definitely going to be in the middle of the ocean. I'm glad I picked up some extra grass for this. I'm going to drop this random stone block on my Catan board. I mean, my random hexagonal board of questionable value. And then we're going to find... Oh, yeah, it's literally going to be nowhere. It's going to be here, attached to nothing. It's very, very close to this little landmass. I think there's, like, some dispensation that could be made for, like, what if we just put it on that landmass? Because if I was looking for 500, 0, I would find this landmass, wouldn't I? Yeah, you know... Should I... Yeah, rather than being in the middle of nowhere, I think being on this random island actually does make more sense. Maybe we should put an arrow at 500, 0. If I play on a render distance that is 3 chunks or less, I won't be able to find it. But I'm going to make a slight change to my idea, although I'll build it as far on this side of the island as I can to kind of balance that. So, you know, that kind of utility versus individual, you know, feelings and stuff is something that's really interesting, because actually looking around at the world, it's what we have done all the time, is to sometimes make trade-offs for the utility of everyone to benefit a very small number of people, and sometimes just their feelings, if we're being really painfully honest about it. Like, there are moments where we will value the, like, so I think an interesting example of this is roads. I'm really interested in the self-driving car problem right now. I think I always have been. My whole adult life, I was safe in the knowledge that I wasn't learning to drive, but actually it was the smart call by the end, because we have self-driving cars, and I'd feel really silly if I, you know, learn to drive and then the car's just going to drive me anyway. Because I love self-driving cars that already exist. They're called, you have to share them with a few other people. It's kind of like a Waymo, but like for 200 people. It's called a train, and it's wonderful because I can be in whatever state I like. I can drink, I can sleep, I can read a book, I can scroll social media, I can endlessly ponder the meaning of utilitarianism. I'm not going to risk anyone's life by doing that unless I get in a fight with the guy next to me. Although, you know, is there a case to be made that actually having a fight with the guy next to you about whether utilitarianism is the right thing to do? Because if he comes to your, you know, if he eventually agrees with your opinion on that one, then actually, you know, he will then do things that will maximize utility in the world, making the world as we know it a better place. Oh yeah, this is such a nice shack. I was worried the first time I made one of these, like 2013 style houses, that I would be like, yeah, but I shouldn't actually do this again. As I'm building more of these, it really is growing on me. Besides the bed colors, I should do something with those. But yeah, so the self-driving car problem is a really interesting one to solve. Because again, I like the idea of trains, but what if there was a train that could go anywhere, anytime, and that, you know, like, I guess you're kind of describing either a taxi or you're describing a self-driving car, right? I mean, I guess a self-driving taxi. But yeah, like, not having to have a social interaction with me is something I place some real value on. So now we're going to 500 minus 500. We're going to go past the I Love Toy Cats Let's Play World sign. A sign that has no value to my world, right? This, also there's a happy gas there. This sign has 0... It actually looks pretty good from a distance. It's when you get closer it gets messed up. This sign adds 0 value to my world. These blocks do nothing for me. Yet, at the same time, Actually, not 100% true. I think that being able to take a photo with this when we get the next update for the... In fact, I can take one right now. I'll use the screenshot button, and it's cool to have that in my little gallery, right? Anyway, so this is 500, 500. It looks like it's perfectly gonna end up... Oh, no, it's not. It's gonna end up in the ocean just in front of this landmass here. So again, I think there's a max distance I have to set as like how far can we be before it doesn't make sense to do. I think in this case we'll just also do it here. Remove some sand because I need some of that anyway. Make a nice relatively flat plane and then we'll start building on top of it. So crafting table here, furnace goes next to it, and then bed at the end of that. Again, later I could come around and like dye all these beds. I might find some value in that. Black is just the color I have the most of because I got so many black sheep to make make the outlines for my Minecraft sign, that now I just have a bunch of it. In fact, I'm also getting a bunch of free, in this case. Oh, there's a guardian. There's a fun quirk of old worlds where the world doesn't know where guardians are meant to spawn. It assumes there is an ocean monument here, because if the world were to generate today, or maybe back when I converted it, there would have been one. But obviously there is no monument here, so I just get wild guardians in a few parts of it. It's kind of wild, actually. Anyway, though, one of the interesting problems that I have is, or one of the interesting problems that I think is prevalent with self-driving cars is this kind of very natural, also, okay, this fairly natural issue. I think that the entrance should really be on this side, but I'll do it on this side anyway, because then I'll get a nice view out of this one. Yeah, there's a really interesting problem with self-driving cars, which is that every road is different. And that's weird, right? Because if you've ever learned to drive, like I had to when I concluded self-driving cars are not coming in the early part of my lifetime, at least. You know, I'll be 57 and I'll be able to have a Waymo strike a conversation with me. But like during my my years that I am alive right now, I'm not expecting to see self-driving cars for better or for worse. And so, you know, like the thing about self-driving cars that makes them so challenging is that roads are different everywhere. Not just that roads are different in China to the United States to Canada to you know, France, but literally, you know, like they drive on three different sides of the road. Wait, no, all of those countries drive on the same side of the road. But you know, from the UK to India to whatever, like, you know, there's huge differences in how not just the roads are within the countries. So UK roads are very different to American roads. That's something I learned because I learned to drive in the UK specifically to drive in America. So I did my test, I passed it, then immediately went over there and was like, this is this is a very different experience. But roads are different not just like from region to region, but like literally roads are different within that place. So obviously the US is huge, different states have different rules. What does it mean when you see a yellow arrow at an intersection? You know, a yellow left arrow, I should say. It genuinely depends on the state, is what I found. A red left arrow usually means the same thing, but sometimes it's like you know, if it's red, it means don't go unless it's clear. Sometimes it's green, and it means, oh yeah, but only turn left if you're really sure. But sometimes it's a flashing green, and that means the same as if it was a flashing like, green arrow. Anyway, there's lots of different meanings for the same things within a country, and that's because we kind of had to, in the same way I'm making compromises on this location, I wanted it at 500 minus 500. I placed it at 509 minus 563, right? I'll probably be able to see it at all times. I'll probably be able to come in here, have a little sleep, then move on with my life. But I have made a very slight error there, I think you'll find. Or a very slight... I think error isn't even the right word. Error is assuming that the only thing that matters in this world is having these houses be at the exact coordinates that I decided they should be at, you know, 20 minutes ago in this video. It was actually yesterday in real life. I don't know if you can tell by the day counter. It reveals the real timeline of the Toy Cats world. But yeah, I think I guess we're very close to 0 minus 500, and I think this time we're gonna get quite lucky, and it's gonna be on land. Yeah, in fact, it's gonna be on land, almost directly above my trial chamber vault that I use for getting strangers to take it. You know, I think it's near that at least. Okay, so let's get the creeper dead. Please die. And then let's build the house here. Again, not quite 0, 500. Or actually, see, this one is easy. We can fix this. But, like, basically, every time you build a road, there's a standardized set of rules that follow all across the US. So the UK in particular, it's quite a centralized country. So we have the ability, if we wanted to build every road exactly the same. With the exception of, like, yeah, we have the ability to. But, like, there are times where, like, okay, turning lanes, roundabouts have a different number of junctions at different points all the time. And then also, more crucially, like, if there's a road that's only going to be used by, like, 100 people a day or 100 people a week, then it doesn't matter that it be perfectly standardized if making it perfectly standardized would be more expensive, or, even worse, if it would lose, you know, like if you had to take more land from a farmer to build a perfectly standard width road, when realistically 2 people are never going to be coming opposite ways. There's a road near where I had to take my car to be fixed out in rural, I think rural Hertfordshire, it might be rural Bedfordshire, but I had to take my car out to be... you know, like, there's a guy I knew, I wanted to use a friend of a friend of a friend or whatever. And so, basically, I went out into the middle of nowhere, and the road was so barely wide enough for 2 cars to drive at the same time that when you did encounter someone, you were like, oh, yeah, this is freaky. And the idea of country lanes in the UK, where it is not wide enough for 2 cars. It's wide enough for 2 cars if one of you goes through the hedge or one of you reverses to someone's driveway. That is the norm across large parts of the UK, because there's, you know, like 7 people a day go on those roads and then they come home on those roads, and that, you know, it doesn't justify that higher cost. And so that is a utilitarian decision to make about how, like, yeah, spending a whole bunch of everyone's money, because roads are funded by national taxpayers, spending everyone's money on making this road slightly nicer for those 7 people is a bad outcome. But then it means that if you want to have self-driving cars that can truly self-drive anywhere and everywhere, they need to learn that, oh yeah, there are different country roads that have different widths, depending on how much money they wanted to spend on them all these years ago. And so even the basic utility of, well, fewer people will use this, therefore it has less value, even that basic utility gets a bit messy. I'm going to put a yellow plank in this one, just for the fun of it. I think later it'd be cool if we actually had, like, some form of slight code on the inside of these. But I think for now, just having a single yellow plank does a great job here. Isn't that nice? Okay, let's head off now to -500, -500. Okay. So again, right now, all of these ones we're starting with are so close to existing beds that they might not even be the first choice if I'm working on something here. Like, if I'm at the Cherry Mansion anyway, I'm not going to fly out, so I hope that chunk is a visual error and it's not actually there. Please. There we go. That's what I love to see. So this next one is going to be in the middle of a desert well, it looks like. Okay, thank God not. But it does have to awkwardly slide between 2 of them here. So if I made it here, I could slide it between these desert wells. And so then, you know, here's another interesting disposition. So just ignoring resources and the basic ones that we all have. Oh, look, it's Jeff Watkins's. I think they're still a viewer. Great to see you, Jeff, and your desert well here. Okay, so basically, I have an idea. Yeah, I think we should just go on this side of the desert wells, or on this side. I think, like, right here is fine, and it's pretty close to 500, 500. Yeah, let's throw one in here. There's already a crafting table, so what if we just place our furnace next to that crafting table? Then we could save ourselves a whole crafting table. Yeah, that's genius, that is. Look at me, saving some money for everyone here. And then we'll make the whole floor of this one out of bamboo. Again, just to be a bit different. You know, no particularly great reason for that. And then we'll place some more cobblestone, because I've got a ton of that, around the entire rest of the edge. And then we'll build the house as normal from the rest of this. Anyway, so I think that the self-driving car problem is that there is a fundamental difference in how roads are that you have to then teach everything to do, which means that slight non-standardization, which is fine for humans, is bad for robots. We made a call that was good for people and is bad for technology, which in a way technology, you know, like, at least right now, usually benefits people, right? Another interesting example of this that I think is, it's the one that I think really, as I, you know, like, I used to think rights were kind of stupid in a level, and hear me out here. I used to think the rights were dumb because we spend so much time and effort making sure that certain rights are respected, like I don't know, your right to not have noisy construction be across the street from you. We put so much work into making sure that that right is respected that we don't consider the rights of the people who might live in that building that can't be constructed because you don't want any noise near where you live. You know, you think of that right as being so inalienable that you don't even think of the cost. You're just like, yeah, this is just something I need. And so we all have a huge cost to society that no one even appreciates, right? If you were saying, oh, thank God we have this system where I can protest things being built across the street from me when I don't want them. If people were thinking that, it would be something. But instead, people are like, yeah, that is the normal, that is how it should be and will always be. And so it's a right that doesn't have much value. And I think we could think of a billion similar examples of this. I think people's desire to have no preservatives in food is an interesting, you know, like one that is, you know, like preservatives exist to preserve food, right? Food will go moldy sooner and therefore more food will be wasted so that you don't have to eat something that we wouldn't put in your food while we're not trying to preserve it to make it less likely to hurt you in the long run, right? So preservatives taste bad, or at the very least they don't taste good. And so it's a really easy argument to make. I don't think I should make a shack if this ends up being in the TU31 Let's Play world, by the way. I don't think that's what I should do. Okay, so yeah, I think we spend a lot of time focusing on right. And so if we think about what government can do, if we assume that government is there to serve people, it's kind of crazy. You know, I'm just gonna put it in one of these. I think that is the right call. I think I literally just put windows in here. It doesn't fit the style, but it makes it very clear that that's what this is meant to be. I'll put windows on the side of this. I'll replace one of these with cobblestone, maybe. No, yeah, I think we just do it, and then we say, look, it's a slightly more unique house than the rest of them. It breaks the standardization model, so if I come here, I might be confused, but it means that it fits the local area just a little bit better, and isn't that nice, I guess we could say. Also, I don't think I want this sandstone. I'm just gonna drop it on the ground. I have so much sandstone, and I know it's not truly renewable, but I'm just not that bothered. So now we'll place the sandstone inside this other house here. There and there. Perfect. No notes. Couldn't do any better. And so now we have just one more, which would be minus 500, positive 500. And then I'll have a ring of beds around my world. But again, they're at a point where they won't be that useful, you know? Because when I'm by the mince rat sign, I kind of already know... it's such a silly big sign. When I'm by the mince rat sign, I kind of already know where my nearest bed is. I think I have a bed right there. And so if I have a bed in the ocean here, I don't think it's as useful as being by the mince rat sign. I think that therefore, I should just turn my bed that exists here into a nice little, you know, setup that has everything. The reason the bed is here is because of the fact that I sleep in it while working on this. One of the many unfinished but slowly being worked on projects in this world, by the way. Let's go over here and let's just make the house just outside these bounds. And even if people see it, it will look fairly in character, right? And so boom, easy stuff. Crafting table, furnace. Let's build those walls. And then we'll have done the entire ring, or ring 1. Ring 2 will be a lot more work, but that's some of the fun, isn't it? So, yeah, this is now 8 separate beds that I've placed, 8 separate crafting tables, 8 separate furnaces that will now make my world better at the cost of having to put extra work in now. And to me, putting that extra work in was, like, totally fine. But, was it really good in the long run? So, no, if governments are there to serve people, I think that a lot of people, you know, if we say that we spend so much money just, you know, enforcing certain rights that, like, people don't even really think of as rights anymore because they're just like, yeah, that's just how it always is. And we actually, like, help people with money, the thing that we know massively helps a lot of people, you know, like, I think that the value of money is really, anyone who tries to downplay the value of money is someone who, is someone who does not understand what it is that money can buy. Or even the fact that money is the thing that buys everything, to be more on the nose about it, I guess. I think I might make the house, the roof from this, out of crafting tables. No, I'm not going to do that. I would just, I like the idea, but I'm not going to. Okay, let's place our planks. And there we go. House is complete. Finishing that standardized ring number 1. But, yeah, so my idea here is fairly simple, right? I think that, I think that, like, a lot of things we can say, I think money is the real unlimited thing. You know, like, have you ever heard, like, you ever had a company, like, reach out after something bad happens? They're like, we just want to offer our thoughts in this hard time. And it's like, what a stupid thing to offer. I don't care about the thoughts of some employee that says, I have your thoughts 16,000 times a day. That has zero value to me. If you were really sad, you'd offer me some money, or you'd offer me some refund, or you'd offer me some real, thing that exists in the world. You know, the concept, the offering that they are so gracious to give you is, something you can give 1 billion people a day. And it's the same is sometimes true about governments, right? Like, so much of what is offered. Also, I've got a bunch of stone in here. I need a bunch of oak logs, not a bunch of stone. I've got birch logs. I've got brown mushroom blocks for some reason. I should definitely build those into something. Okay, so now we're going to do the next ring out, which means we go this way a bunch. I think realistically this isn't the direction we should start with, but I genuinely don't know what's over here, so I'm going to fly out and build one of these houses at 1,000 minus 500, just because I want to see what's here. It genuinely might be unloaded chunks. Isn't it fun that you can be in a world for so long and not have seen, like, just an entire section? Okay, right here. This is new house location. So let's place down. Since we have a flat land that goes everywhere, we can make this as close to 1,000 as we can. Right over here, crafting table goes down. This is the midpoint of the house. It's the useful thing. Next to that goes my furnace, and then we'll place our beds. So yeah, I think I think a lot of, like, rights are kind of, like, bizarre, ambiguous, and don't matter a lot to people. And so I think if you, like, my dumbest idea that I think I would, is why I could never be a politician, is because I'm about to suggest this right now, is I think your citizenship is one of your biggest collection of rights. You get guaranteed consular assistance, you get the automatic right to live in the country off your citizenship. I think you should be able to sell your citizenship. Right now, the way it works is government sells citizenships via visa fees and long conditions and blah, 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 blah. So it's the government that has monopolized making money out of the value of that citizenship. The value of your citizenship should be yours. You should be able to say, as much as I probably wouldn't recommend it, you should be able to say, yeah, I'm going to trade my citizenship with this guy from, like, let's say a medium passport power country. So I'm going to trade my citizenship with someone from, Thailand. And because I want to live in Thailand anyway, if I want to come and live back in, the Czech Republic or America or wherever else we're going to imagine, then I'll have to apply through the visa route like everyone else. I'll have to prove my value like everyone else. But now, instead of the citizenship money going to the government that they can now use as, like, a source of taxes, it's me who should be making, I think that if you look at the amount of money that, like, governments spend and, like, how little of it, like, feels like it helps the average person, I think it would be, like, a not that unpopular thought of, like, oh yeah, more things that currently we treat as, like, us money should be, like, you money. Like, I think if you, I think selling your citizenship is a fine idea. I think there are other rights that, like, a lot of people would be happy to sign away if they were allowed to, but we say no, and again, if you really look into it, you can understand why that is. But what I think is interesting is that the real reason we have to say that utilitarianism doesn't work in that way, the real reason we can't say that, yeah, I think that I would get more value out of the £13,000 that someone pays for a UK visa. If I haven't mentioned, I applied for a US visa at one point, chat. There's no chat here, it's a video, but you chat anyway, I'm sorry. Anyway, so, I applied for a US visa, but the costs were going to be just directly to the US government was like $7,500. Then there were costs that had to go to union, like, they were siphoning my money to all sorts of random organizations. And, like, the whole process just seemed super dumb. If I'm being, I would love to tell you, like, on a moral, I was just like, this is silly. This is idiotic. I have to sign up for a union to do this job that I am, like literally has no, there's no way a union structure could help. I had to get a talent manager that was a US, citizen, etc., etc. They were, and I think that instead of, like, having all those weird sources of thing, wouldn't it be better if, like, my 13,000 or whatever the cost would be was just split amongst all American citizens that exist right now? Wouldn't that be a better, setup for a lot of people? You know, do you like to know that someone coming into the country has at least signed up for the correspondingly correct union? Or would you rather, oh, here's my check for 57 cents and I'll get another 15,000 of these this year. That'll be some real money towards my next, I don't know, grocery bill, car, whatever else. I think people care about those concepts more than they care about rights or whatever else. But yeah, it makes me sound like a villain from a video game, a poorly written video game, if I'm being honest. But yeah, I think I think the biggest argument against utilitarianism, I think the biggest argument you could make, I'm gonna go for the never, try and make one of these nearest where I most need them right now. Like right here, again, I'm so close to quite a few beds that I think I could place one, but it wouldn't do me a lot of good. Also, there's an elder garden in there still. I did not know that. That'll be useful if I need to get more logs. So yeah, if I'm gonna place, if I've got like just a few more logs left, my log supply is entirely run down after this. I want to make sure I place it in a good spot. And as much as I love the Toy Cat of Liberty, actually, yeah, I think over here might be a good spot, just behind it, at 500, 1,000. And then we'll have to come back for the one in the middle later. But yeah, there's going to be a whole second ring of these, which will be useful in their own right for their own stuff. So yeah, as I was saying though, there's, when it comes to utility, you really quickly realize that the concept of just maximize the value for everyone works really easy when you think of people as being spreadsheets, but really starts to break when you realize how many mixed goals that the average individual has. So the easiest example of why you can't do this is, you know, if the enjoyment that I get from murder outweighs the joy or the downside to your life from being murdered, then the logical utilitarian solution to that is I should be allowed to murder you. Honestly, it sounds a little, you know, it sounds a little rude. It is a little rude. I think we could say that it definitely is, but it isn't that far off being reasonable, right? That like, well, if you don't really want to be alive that badly anyway, and I really, really get off on murder, then why can't I kill you? Or, you know, even I think the more classic example would be picture a coliseum full of people, as often happened in many times across the world. Picture a coliseum full of people that are, you know, like, you know, they're having a bad day. They want to watch a lion rip apart a man. And so, you know, that whole crowd of people, let's say there's 50,000 people in that crowd, 50,000 people will cheer and be so excited, and all that has to happen in exchange is you have to be ripped apart by a lion. Yes, your negative feeling towards that is probably very, very high, but their positive feeling is also very high, and so sorry about this, mate, you have to be fed to the lions. And I think that situation is why we create this idea that, like, yeah, actually, okay, no, as silly as it is, we do need to have some rights, we need to have some things that you can have guaranteed, such as the fact that just because your fellow citizens think it would be cool to watch, you're not going to be ripped apart by lions. That has to be a fundamental right, because even though it sucks to be eaten by lions, I don't think that's even the real reason you have to care about it. Let's be honest, if we had to feed 1 in 50,000 people to the lions right now, and it genuinely made the rest of our lives better, a lot of people would agree to that. If you don't think I'm right about that, you can see what's happening in various countries around the world right now. People love the idea of everyone else is suffering and their benefit at the cost of it. So I wanted to make a stack, and I've only made, according to the number of these I've used, I've only made about 12 beds so far. I think this is my 11th, actually. And so you can see that this is it added a lot of time consumption to build this structure, but in the same way that the real value of the right to not be eaten by a lion is not the fact that I will not be eaten by a lion, as silly as it is to say, it's the fact that I don't have to fear being eaten by a lion. If I knew that any day there was a 1 in 50,000 chance that if we wanted someone to be eaten by a lion, they might choose me, that would freak me out immensely. I think, again, being eaten by a lion probably doesn't suck as bad as it feels. I bet it sucks the moment, like, I bet the first bite through to when you finally die, I bet all of those moments are really unpleasant, but there aren't actually that many of them. You know what I mean? Like, there aren't that many moments where you're being eaten by a lion. Most of the problem with being eaten by lions is the fear that you have to deal with as you slowly get eaten by lions. At least in my opinion. By the way, I have 49 seconds till I can chop down trees correctly. But given that right now, this is the thing I need most, it is the thing that I should focus on. So let's put in here our cobblestone, our this, our that, our furnaces, our glass. The bamboo as well, maybe. Now, I'll put the black wool in there too, though, actually. Whole stack and a half of that. And then we can pick this up very, very, very slowly. And then if I could milk a cow right now, that would get me to the point where I can chop this down easily. Because, yeah, I have this big wood factory, and I haven't had to chop trees in here in literally, I think it's been 3-4 years now, chat. Because I've always had enough oak, but I just used up the last of my oak supply today. And so while working on this project, I made it slightly hard on myself, not just because there was more building, but now I have to do another task. But weirdly, despite me removing utility from my world, this project, if I had just placed beds, I could have placed all 64 beds really, really quickly. I could have placed all 64 crafting tables. It would have been fast. I wouldn't have to think about like, ooh, can I build a house here? I'd have just done it. But even though I've achieved less here, even though I've achieved less in this world, and I've had to give myself an extra task, I still think I'm actually better off. So let's go into the house just to show you that I have, again, very little oak. I've got like 16, 8. I need to re-top up my oak supplies in this large chest I keep here. And that means we'll do a little bit of chopping while I finish up my forts. So yeah, I think the biggest value in, if I had to say so, the biggest value in not being eaten by a lion is the fact that you don't have to fear being eaten by the lion. Most of the pain comes from that. And so the right to say that no one should be eaten by a lion, just because it would be entertaining for everyone else, is actually a really easy right to guarantee. It's one that technically creates negative utility, but the side effect is a lot of positive utility. There are lots of actions that would create huge positive utility, but then would set a precedent that would create a bunch of negative. So, what's an interesting example of that? If everyone believed that everyone else would be fully utilitarian all the time, then you would have to live your life differently to make sure that everyone believed that your life was valuable. So, for example, if you believed that, okay, there's a band of raiders that come through here once a week. Let's say that one of the ways that we could make the modern world function way better is if one person in every town agrees to go and become a slave for some Middle Eastern nation, and they come by once every year and they say who's going to be picked. And so you would have to live your life differently. One, you would have to think that everyone around you doesn't really care about you that much, because you might be sent away to go be a slave one day and they don't want to get attached. But two, you'd have to create so much extra, like you have to be like, look, I'm the town doctor. You send me away, you guys aren't going to have any, doctoring going on. And so people would have to live at each other's throats more, which is why, even though the value would be higher, we'd all be richer, and some number of us might have, extra human slavery or whatever. Some people like slaves. I think the people who own them are very big fans of that. It's the people who didn't own them it's the people who were them that I think are particularly anti it. I mean, actually, I think that's a gross misunderstanding too. This is something I want to just briefly mention because it is true. The people who are most against slavery, obviously, slaves were a big group, but because they were slaves, they weren't considered, it wasn't their opinions that people were using. It was that, a lot of people felt it to be, quite uncomfortable. Again, it's weird. People who didn't live in those states, if I'm not mistaken, it was people who lived on the other side of the country where slavery was less required. They found the idea abhorrent, as abhorrent as we do today, right? Probably, actually, if we're being honest, significantly less abhorrent than we find it today. But it's to them, it wasn't that these new people were going to join their communities. It was that they felt it wrong that this should be existing anywhere. The fact that you have to acknowledge that something, having something exist has downsides beyond just the pain faced for the people involved. I think this is something really, really, really interesting that is worth analyzing when it comes to looking at people who are horrified not by events happening in their community or not by events that are very big and well known about and that everyone opposes. They love to. I think there's a lot of people who are actively looking for that next big thing to be horrified about because it's really I think some people have a level of empathy that a level of concern that can like drive themselves to craziness. Because we have lots of different conflicting human values, we have lots of different things we need to maximize, and so there is no way to maximize one human's utility. And if you want proof of that, think about what it is you do in a day. This one really broke me, right? I think the average day is never average. You know, right? Like if you work a job, you probably work 5 days a week. If you work a lot of overtime, that changes a little bit. But the amount of work that you do is 5 days a lot, 2 days not very much. Okay, well, does that mean work is good or work is bad? Because if work is bad, why are you only avoiding it 2 days a week? If work is good, why are you avoiding it at all, you know? And that's because I think that people who don't work, it genuinely like removes a lot of your like feeling of value, but also working all the time removes a lot of your feeling of value too. There's a weird world where we have so many sources of value that doing all one thing or all another thing does not work for us. And so to maximize human utility on an individual level is so hard that how could you ever do it for a whole society without saying, let's just feed anyone who's upset to the lions, and that'll make everyone else a little bit less upset. Because, you know, it would make me upset to know that people are being fed to lions, even if I felt like I'd be immune. You know, they're like, oh, Toycat, well, you're not going to be fed to lions. You're a Minecraft YouTuber. You're like our town's doctor. I would still be like, but I don't want to know that Steve might be fed to the lions at any minute. Because, you know, Steve might deserve to be fed to lions. But I still don't like living in a world where that means that he's going to be fed to lions. Anyway, with that said, there is my mini rant on utilitarianism and how I think that utility is something you should maximize, but also it's something that you can never truly measure, and that you should be fully willing to question what it is you mean by utility and what it is you mean by stuff. Because I think that a lot of the value in rights comes not from themselves, but from the fact that you can live your whole life knowing that they exist, which is fun and quirky and valuable. Anyway, with that said, I hope that these thoughts were interesting, and I hope that this Let's Play has been a fun one. I think, if I'm being honest, I really, really enjoy. I think I enjoy too many different styles of Let's Plays. That doing this style right here, you know, I always feel like we should have like that fast section at the beginning, but I think something I was considering doing as a separate channel, but I might do right here, is I wanted to have like a long form version of this. And I think that's exactly what we're going to do. I think we're going to have a new long form version of the Let's Play, and it will be coming out at some point fairly soon. I hope you all enjoyed this version. I probably have retention numbers that show that statistically a large percent of you did not, but hopefully the ones of you who did consider either becoming a channel member, greatest way to support the channel, or you could even consider checking out the Update Adventures Let's Play playlist. Watch it, don't watch it. If it's playing, it helps out the channel a lot. And for now, I hope you all enjoyed, because I'll see you next time. Okay, so now I can put logs in here, and now I've got my little chest ready for placing more of those, which is great. Am I ever going to do that? Or will one day I just have to place this in the middle of that, you know, choker sorter? I guess we'll find out. It'll be a lot of fun. Anyway, thank you, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.